Budi, I'm still waiting for the answer.
Hello, Pak Dewa. How are you?
Hello, good. How are you, Cynthia?
I'm good. Nice to have you here. Pak Dewa, is it possible to rename yourself because I still see it as a panelist?
Yes, no problem, no problem.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, thank you.
We already, can we open the, yes, please, Mbak Irma, to open the room. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, selamat siang, and welcome everyone to Asia Pacific Climate Week 2021 event with the title Mobilized Ambition and Achieving NDCs, Enhancing Non-Party Stakeholders Contribution. This event is a collaboration between CDP and WRI Indonesia. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Oki. I'm the Policy Engagement Manager for CDP for Southeast Asia, and I will help to facilitate today's event. Before we start, let's take a look on our agenda for today. For the next almost 2 hours, we will discuss several topics related to enhance non-party stakeholders' contribution. That we are going to start with a welcome and opening remarks by CDP's Regional Director, Pratima Divdi. Next is the discussions where we get to hear from our respectful speakers from Indonesian Ministry of Finance on financing climate mitigation, followed by enabling and understanding subnational and private sector stakeholders' contributions to achieve GHG emission reductions target, and will be presented by Siak Regency Government and CDL Singapore. There will be a Q&A session to explore more our first three speakers. In the second session, we will hear more on how building scenario for West Papua contribution to achieve NDCs and climate action best practice and challenges perspective from small medium enterprises. We also would like to invite participation from you through Zoom polling right after the second session ended. Finally, we will end the event with closing remarks by Tony Levina from ILED Climate Transform 2025 to catalyze climate action and next steps to prepare COP26. Before handing it over to Pratima, I would like to describe a bit on the housekeeping rule. Audience may submit any questions they have to the speakers, which will be discussed in the Q&A session. Please use the Q&A box for questions. This is bilingual webinar. We provide simultaneous translation. You may click in the translation icon at the bottom. Here are a few housekeeping rules for the event today. All participants are muted on entry to avoid background noise. So, if you have any questions, please feel free to submit them in the Q&A box. Lastly, this webinar is recorded, and we will share a link to the recording and the slide deck in the follow-up email. Bahasa or English interpretations will be available in the Indonesia or English interpretation room. Please go on to the next slide, please. For those of you who would like to listen in Bahasa or English, these are the steps. Click the interpretation button located at the bottom of your Zoom platform. Then click the Indonesian or English language and mute the original audio. With that, I'll hand it over to our Regional Director, Pratima Divdi, for the welcome address. Pratima, over to you.
Thank you, Oki. Are you able to hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yes, it's fine, Pratima.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here today. 2020 was supposed to be a super year as most of the global leaders were setting their climate targets. The global pandemic has shifted priorities in many countries as they now struggle to cope with the ongoing health crisis. But in my view, COVID-19 really shows us the importance of preparing for environmental and social uncertainties. And there is absolutely no doubt that the years ahead are critical for us to continue to prepare for, set goals, and start adapting to climate uncertainties. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres defined these coming 10 years as the decade of action. Over the coming years, we need to accelerate sustainable solutions to meet all of the world's biggest challenges and that ranges from poverty, gender inequality, financial inclusion, and climate change. The science is unequivocal. Global emissions must be halved by 2030. We must achieve net zero emissions by 2050 to cap global warming at 1.5 degrees. And around the globe, businesses, investors, subnational governments have committed to achieving net zero emissions by 2050 through the UNFCCC's Race to Zero campaign, now collectively covering nearly 25% of global greenhouse gas emissions and over 50% of GDP. The role of policy and regulation here is paramount, and we see tremendous momentum in the region for collaborative action. Policymakers and market regulators in this region are accelerating progress towards the Paris Agreement and the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs. Dynamic and effective policy action and regulation particularly creates an enabling environment for subnational governments and the private sectors to operate and contribute to global goals. The nationally determined contributions, or NDCs, in many Southeast Asian countries will be successful only if there is synergy among the stakeholders. Policy alignment and partnerships are therefore required to implement ambitions towards the Paris Agreement. And alongside ambitious emission reductions, countries also need to make sure that nature-based solutions are incorporated into their NDCs. Nature is not only a cost-effective measure to enhance NDC ambition, it is also key to protecting biodiversity, mitigating climate change, and improving disaster resilience, as well as enhancing livelihoods. Today's event is a CDP-WRI Indonesia collaboration as part of the Asia Pacific Climate Week. 20 years ago, CDP as an organization started with a very simple goal. The goal was to collect information from large companies on how they manage climate change. Fast forward to today, CDP is now considered the gold standard, with more than 10,000 organizations reporting to us on the management of their climate, water, and forest impacts. The Asia Pacific region accounts for 30% of these disclosures. WRI Indonesia is an environmental research organization that turns big ideas into action and is at the nexus of environment, economic opportunity, and human well-being. WRI works with various stakeholders in the natural resources sector to support policy and management that are both profitable and sustainable. Both CDP and WRI have expanded their presence and portfolio to include climate change, forests, and engage with corporates, financial institutions, policy, and regulators towards a sustainable, low-carbon economy. We also focus on science-based targets. As many of you know, CDP and WRI are founders of the Science-Based Targets Initiative. In this session, we would like to create a discussion on the non-state actors' contributions for NDC achievement and potentially also their role in raising climate ambitions. I am joined by esteemed speakers from the Indonesia Ministry of Finance, the Siak Government, City Developments Limited from Singapore, University of Papua, and Mycotech Lab. Through the remainder of the session, these speakers will provide their unique perspective and experience in regards to developing climate resilience and transitioning to low carbon. We will begin by national government plans in addressing the role of subnational governments in Indonesia, before exploring how they can drive and coordinate ambitious corporate sector action in their jurisdictions. I hope that by attending this session, all of you will get insightful information and join us to work together in realizing the commitment to cap global warming at 1.5 degrees. Thank you very much again for participating, and over to you, Oki.
Thank you, Pratima, for taking the time to join us today. We are really appreciated. Like you said, that the importance of coordinations among the stakeholders is a key to achieve the commitment. Next, we have a panel discussions on the topic of the enabling subnationals and private stakeholders effort to strengthen NDC pathways and beyond. I'm pleased to introduce our moderator, Sarah Xie. She is a senior fellow and coordinators on ICS Yusuf Ishaq Institute. Prior to joining the ICS Yusuf Ishaq Institute, Ms. Xie was Associate Director of the NUS Center for International Law. She has spent 14 years in the National Environmental Agency and Ministry of Foreign Affairs prior to entering academia, including a diplomatic posting to the Singapore Embassy in Bangkok, Thailand, from 2003 to 2007. Ms. Xie maintains an interest in climate change and environmental issues, multilateralism, and Asian development. Ms. Xie graduated with a Master in Public and International Law from the University of Melbourne in 2018. And please, Sharon, over to you.
Thank you, Oki. And thank you very much to CDP and WRI Indonesia for inviting me to moderate this session. It is a privilege to play a small part as a non-party stakeholder myself in enriching the discussions that will follow. My name is Sharon Xie. I'm from the Institute of Southeast Asian Studies, ICS Yusuf Ishaq Institute of Singapore. As a region, Southeast Asia is historically one of the lowest carbon emitters, yet we have suffered disproportionate impacts of climate change, and increasingly so over the last few years. The prognosis for those of us living in this region for the next few decades is no good. Prevailing climate science tells us that even if we were to do all we can in this decade, we will still suffer the effects of climate change for years to come. But to do nothing is not an option. For the longest time, non-state actors are not seen as legitimate subjects of public international law. Some entities, such as international organizations, are accorded legal personality, which courts them recognition. But other non-state actors, such as cities, civil society, and the private sector, are now increasingly playing an active role in environmental and climate change lawmaking and enforcement. Today's webinar topic on mobilizing ambition in achieving NDCs and how non-party stakeholders can contribute to this goal is a critical and much needed one in our region. We're joined here today by a stellar panel of 5 non-party stakeholder experts. Sorry, one of them may be a stakeholder, a Ministry of Finance speaker, who have been playing strong advocacy roles in their own sectors, and they will share with us how they can drive greater ambition at different levels. So I will introduce all of our speakers at once, and then we will start with the first speaker. So we have with us Pak Dewa Putu Ekayana from the Ministry of Finance of Indonesia. Pak Dewa is currently working as the policy analyst for the Ministry of Finance. He is also a researcher for the Research Center for Climate Change at the University of Indonesia. Our second speaker is Pak Budi Yuwono, who is the Assistant to the Government and Welfare in Siak Regency in Riau Province. Siak Regency is one of the founders in sustainability, and he's also actively involved within this association, the Sustainability District Association. And to support the implementation of the Siak Regency commitment, Siak Hijau, since 2018, Pak Budi has been involved in engaging with various stakeholders in the Regency, within the government itself, with NGOs and private sector, as well as the youth of Siak. Our third speaker is Ms. Esther Ann, Chief Sustainability Officer of City Developments Limited. Esther is an active advocate for sustainability for over 2 decades. She has been instrumental in establishing CDL's leadership in integrating ESG best practices. CDL, as you all know, is the top-ranked real estate company on the Global 100 Most Sustainable Corporations in the world for 2020. It is also the only CDP A-list company for climate strategy and water security in Southeast Asia. Esther is an advocate for women empowerment. She has founded the Women for Green Network to engage women in sustainable practices at home, at work, and at play. So I expect that we'll hear a lot from her. Our fourth speaker is Dr. Henry from the University of Papua. Dr. Henry graduated from Hiroshima University, Japan, and is currently leading research on subnational contributions for NDCs. He studies the intersection in agroforestry issues, including the potential of blue carbon and the preservation of carbon sinks in climate mitigation. And finally, our last speaker is Mr. Areka Bintangan, who is the co-founder and chief sustainability officer of Mycotech Lab, MYCL. He is responsible for product innovation in terms of the technological aspects, certification, and innovation. His background is in microbiology and biotechnology that drives him to develop conventional building materials into sustainable and environmentally friendly building materials with the help of mushroom mycelium. The production of mycelium biocomposite materials promises to be a novel approach for recycling and reusing plant-based waste products. I have taken a look at his company's website and find it to be fascinating that we have such a product now entering the market. But without further ado, I want to invite our very first speaker, Pak Dewa, to start the session. Pak Dewa, please.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Sharon, for the nice introduction. My name is Dewa Ekayana. I'm from the Ministry of Finance of Indonesia. I'm sorry, my presentation is in Bahasa Indonesia. I thought this seminar would be held in Bahasa. I hope you guys can follow my my presentation. My presentation entitled "How to Mobilize financing contribution to achieve our NDC target." And also involve our non-state actor. Okay, next. Next, please. The slide number 2. This is number 3. Is there any slide number 2? Okay. This is this is the background of my presentation. That currently everybody knows that not only Indonesia, all over the world is hampering by the pandemic situation. Firstly, the pandemic decrease the pollution, decrease the emission, but unfortunately, after the time pandemic was happened, the pollution, the emission getting increased, and we from the Ministry of Finance have worriness that after the pandemic finish, the emission will increase more, because many countries will try to boost their economy. For the consequence, boosting the economic is emission will increase. So. We from the Ministry of Finance try to building a road that recovery from the pandemic should not increase the emission. So we would try build how to get a country recovery and not increase the emission by the mainstreaming green recovery. Okay, next slide, please. Slide number 2. Is there any slide number 2? Okay, slide number 2. Maybe everybody knows that Indonesia have NDC target 29% and 41%. 29% is that's because from our effort, and 41% from if we get support from the international donor. So this NDC target in the medium term, reflecting into our medium term development target in our FPGM, and we call it low carbon development. So we try to reflecting our NDC target into our medium term development target. Okay, next slide, please. So this is I want to slide number 3, please. Okay, this one. So this I want to give you a background that to achieve our NDC target 29% and 41% need extra effort in many sectors. The first sector that we should encompass is that from the forestry. The second sector is from energy and transportation, and the third sector is that from the industry, and fourth sector is the waste management, and the 5 is from the agriculture sector. Every sector has a different target to achieve their NDC. You may be aware that currently government of Indonesia still fully rely on forestry sector to achieve their NDC target. So mainly focus of the financing still focusing on the forestry. Next, I will explain to you about the government financing regarding the mitigation sector, especially in forestry sector. Okay, next slide, please. So this is from data was taken from the climate budget taking that we held from 2016 until 2021. That this is that need financing need to achieve those NDC target is we need a huge financing need. For example, like in forestry sector, we need like 8 trillion rupiah per year, and 90 trillion rupiah from 2020 until the NDC target achieved into 2030. So this is a huge amount of money that we need in order to achieve our NDC target. So what the government do to achieve this this NDC target, to finance the effort to achieving this NDC target? So how many government that's already financed to achieve this this NDC target? And the next slide, please. The previous one. No, the next one. No. Yeah, this is one. Oh, no. Previous one. Sorry, previous one, please. After this. Oh, no. Oh, God. Next, one more slide. Before this slide. Before the one slide before this slide. So, okay, no problem. So in this, the message that I want to share to you, that the capability of the government is very limited. So the government only have around 30% of the financing capability. So we need like more support from other parties to finance this effort, this program to achieve our NDC target. So the next slide, please. So next, government, we have you may aware that in climate change, the focal point is from the KLHK. Other than that, Bappenas and other ministry like ESDM and Perindustri and also involved. And Ministry of Finance has a big role in provide the financing mechanism to achieve that NDC target. So the next slide, please. So in this slide, we try to like give you a preview that what our APBN, our public budget, do to finance to achieve our NDC, especially to finance the green economy, green economy activity and support fiscal sustainability. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide. Oh, okay, this one. So I mentioned to you already that the capacity of the government to finance our NDC target is very limited. For example, in our mitigation side, we only can support from the central government only can support around average is around 34% per year. So we need other parties' involvement in achieve this target, and also the financing still heavily on mitigation side. The adaptation side is still very limited. Okay, next slide, please. So Ministry of Finance try to mainstream, try to generate innovative financing to finance those gap of capability, those gap of financing. So what should the government do to finance those gaps? Next slide, please. So in this slide, you can see that other parties beside the government has many potential to finance. For example, in agriculture sector, in transportation sector, in energy sector, also has ample of opportunity to financing. For example, in forestry sector, the government only finance 34%. In waste management, only finance 26%. In energy, only finance 15%. In transportation sector, only finance 18%. That's I want to reiterate to you that our government capability is very limited. Okay, next slide, please. Now, this is the one of mechanism that we want to propose to involve other state actor. We call it private PPP, public-private financing. This is collaboration between public and private. So in this mechanism, we provide like many incentive for the private sector that want to join the PPP mechanism. Those incentives include tax holiday, tax allowance, and PPN facility, and also import tax facility. Next slide, please. Beside that, beside the PPP, we also try to induce the government, the local government, to take action in financing mitigation. Central government will allocate more. We call it DAK special purpose grant in order to increase awareness of local government to finance climate change activity, especially in mitigation sector. Okay, next slide, please. Besides that, we also like to generate other source of financing from international and also from the private. Government of Indonesia right now has issued 5-time green sukuk with huge interest from especially from international parties. So this green sukuk has a purpose to financing the climate change action, especially in mitigation in the mitigation sector. Next slide, please. Other than green sukuk, the central government probably this year will issue like SDGs bond. This is also other thematic bond that want to finance SDGs related activities that we try to generate financing from private, from international, from the community to finance SDGs related activities. This SDGs bond also include like green bond and also blue activity bond. Okay, next slide, please. Besides those financing mechanism, we from the Ministry of Finance try to take from a bigger perspective in order to financing mitigation activity. Ministry of Finance, Central Bank, Bank of Indonesia, and OJK coordinate each other to encourage sustainable development in Indonesia in fiscal side, monetary side, and also financial sector side. Because we aware that in order to achieve sustainable development goal, we cannot rely on ourselves in especially in financing. We also need collaboration from the Bank Indonesia and also from the OJK, Otoritas Jasa Keuangan. Okay, next slide, please.
Dewa, again, reminder that you have limited time. So
yes, 2 more slides.
Thank you.
Okay, in this slide, we try to explain you that Ministry of Finance has many initiatives to boost sustainable development. For example, we try like encourage government regulation regarding the polluter pay principle, and right now we also propose like carbon trading mechanism. So probably in this year or next year, Indonesia will have like government carbon trading mechanism. And next slide, the last slide, I want to next slide, please. This slide I want to explain to you that government of Indonesia, beside the NDC, also has eagerness to achieve our net zero emission target. I don't know it will apply in 2015 or 2016, but this net zero emission will become our more ambitious target beside the NDC, because many experts, many people think that NDC target is not quite ambitious enough to save our environment, to save our world. Okay, that's my presentation, Sharon. Thank you for your time. I'm sorry that I offered the time. Over to you, Sharon.
Thank you, Pak Dewa. And now can I invite Bapak Budi? Bapak, are you here? Bapak Budi from Siak Regency. Yes, it's over to you.
Ya, terima kasih. Mungkin saya di dalam bahasa Indonesia, ya, jadi ada beberapa hal yang mungkin dapat kami sampaikan berkaitan dengan untuk penurunan emisi ini, dan sedikit mungkin kami sampaikan bahwa di Kabupaten Siak, ya, dengan luas wilayah 8.566 km persegi, itu separohnya, itu lebih daripada separohnya sudah merupakan lahan gambut. Ya, sebagaimana kita maklumi bahwa lahan gambut ini sangat sangat riskan, sangat rentan terhadap kebakaran. Nah, apabila terjadi kebakaran tentu juga akan mempengaruhi daripada keberadaan penurunan gas rumah kaca ini. Ya, jadi ini yang merupakan kerja berat kami di Kabupaten Siak, ya. Dan bagaimana kami menjaga lahan gambut ini tadi, dan bagaimana kami menjaga supaya lahan gambut ini tidak terjadi kebakaran, dan bagaimana kami juga bisa menerapkan pembangunan berkelanjutan di Kabupaten Siak, maka kami merangkul semua pihak yang ada di Kabupaten Siak ini, terutama juga private sektor yang ada di Kabupaten Siak. Di Kabupaten Siak terdapat lebih daripada 20 pabrik kelapa sawit. Terdapat juga 18 perusahaan perkebunan kelapa sawit. Sorry, ya, saya baru buka video, ya. Nah, ada 18 perusahaan perkebunan kelapa sawit, ya, dan juga ada 4 perusahaan yang bergerak di bidang hutan tanaman industri. Nah, tentunya mereka ini, perusahaan-perusahaan ini memiliki peranan penting bagaimana menjaga lingkungan yang ada di Kabupaten Siak. Nah, Kabupaten Siak juga merupakan pendiri dari Lingkar Temu Kabupaten Lestari, ya, dengan difasilitasi dari Lingkar Temu Kabupaten Lestari, maka kami dalam merangkul pihak-pihak yang berkepentingan di dalam menjaga kelestarian lingkungan, menjaga perubahan iklim, itu juga semakin kuat, ya, semakin kuat. Nah, pertama, di dalam menjaga kelestarian lingkungan, menjaga perubahan iklim yang ada di Kabupaten Siak ini, kami membentuk ataupun merangkul kawan-kawan NGO dalam nama Sodawo Siak. Jadi ada lebih kurang 21 LSM bersama-sama kami menjaga, memberikan pemahaman kepada masyarakat, menjaga ataupun memberikan pemahaman kepada teman-teman private sector supaya kita saling berangkul tangan untuk menjaga terjadinya kebakaran hutan yang ada di Kabupaten Siak. Nah, terus juga kami juga sudah membentuk tim koordinasi Siak Hijau. Ya, selain daripada pemerintah juga melibatkan semua teman-teman NGO dan private sector yang ada di Kabupaten Siak. Juga kami membentuk koalisi private sector Siak Hijau. Ya, jadi perusahaan-perusahaan yang bergerak di Kabupaten Siak ini semuanya kami rangkul untuk bersama-sama memiliki satu komitmen di dalam menjaga kelestarian lingkungan yang ada di Kabupaten Siak. Semua yang mereka lakukan wajib mematuhi kaidah-kaidah di dalam kelestarian lingkungan. Nah, terus juga di dalam mengangkat ataupun menggalang, merangkul daripada pemerintahan desa, kami juga sudah menerapkan TAKE, transfer anggaran kabupaten berbasis ekologi. Nah, sehingga desa-desa yang memiliki kinerja ekologinya baik, dia akan mendapat tambahan anggaran di dalam penyelenggaraan pemerintahan desanya. Nah, sejak tahun 2018 kami juga sudah berkomitmen menjaga kelestarian yang dituangkan di dalam Peraturan Bupati Siak nomor 22 tahun 2018 yang ataupun tentang inisiatif Siak Hijau. Jadi di Peraturan Bupati ini kami mengatur sedemikian rupa supaya komitmen daripada Siak Hijau ini bisa dilaksanakan oleh semua pihak yang berkepentingan yang ada di Kabupaten Siak. Dan juga kami juga sudah mendorong UMKM untuk mengolah ataupun memanfaatkan potensi-potensi yang ada secara ramah lingkungan. Ya, jadi potensi-potensi yang ada di Kabupaten Siak diolah, dimanfaat sedemikian rupa oleh UMKM dengan ramah lingkungan dan ramah sosial. Nah, demikian juga dengan perusahaan-perusahaan yang ada di sini, kami juga mewajibkan ataupun mengajak mereka supaya juga di dalam melaksanakan kegiatannya tidak menimbulkan masalah bersama dengan kawan-kawan yang ada di tingkat tapak. Nah, terus juga konsep ekonomi lestari yang kami galang di Kabupaten Siak bersama dengan seluruh perusahaan, berkaitan juga teman-teman CSO, ya, supaya pengusaha-pengusaha lokal itu melakukan semua kegiatannya ramah lingkungan, mulai dari hulu sampai dengan ke hilir, dengan mewujudkan kelembagaan multi pihak. Nah, ini beberapa hal yang sebagai intervensi kami bersama dengan LTKL untuk mendukung usaha mikro menengah secara lestari. Di antaranya yaitu inkubator lokal, pelatihan training untuk wirausaha muda, di mana tujuannya adalah untuk melatih inkubator lokal sebagai wadah pelaku usaha dan UMKM. Nah, berikutnya juga UMKM kria dan fashion, ya, untuk pelatihan membuka toko online. Ini juga bersama dengan Tokopedia kemarin, bagaimana kami melatih UMKM untuk beradaptasi di masa pandemi COVID ini tadi. Nah, setelah itu juga UMKM Kria, di mana pelatihan pendampingan UMKM ya di Desa Dayun untuk memberikan peningkatan kapasitas dalam manajemen rantai pasok dan kualitas produk anyaman. Ya, ini terus juga ada UMKM masyarakat Siak, pembuatan sabun yang difasilitasi juga dengan Argapana, ya, dan juga anak muda Siak, ya, anak muda Siak kami membentuk laboratorium Siak, ya, sebagai pusat riset dan pengembangan untuk memproses potensi alam Siak menjadi produk turunan yang bernilai tambah. Nah, terakhir kami membentuk PT Alam Siak Lestari yang merupakan BUMDes dengan masyarakat Kabupaten Siak, yang di mana kegiatannya adalah mendorong badan usaha gotong royong bersama masyarakat, ya. Yang terakhir ini berkaitan dengan produksi albumin dari ikan gabus. Nah, inilah beberapa hal, sebetulnya banyak lagi yang telah kami lakukan bagaimana supaya memang kami bisa berpartisipasi untuk menekan NDC tadi, ya. Bagaimana kami bisa menekan NDC tadi? Inilah beberapa hal yang kami lakukan di Kabupaten Siak, merangkul semua pihak untuk bisa berpartisipasi menekan NDC, ya, untuk juga bisa berpartisipasi menekan daripada proses gas rumah kaca. Mungkin ini Miss Sharon yang kami bisa sampaikan beberapa hal terkait dengan yang kami lakukan di Kabupaten Siak. Terima kasih, selamat sore.
Thank you, thank you. It's very heartening to hear that there's ground-up initiatives from Siak Regency, especially those involving the youth. And now I want to invite Ms. Esther Ann to make her presentation, please, Esther.
Hi, okay, let me call up my slide. And good afternoon, everyone. And definitely, it's like what Pratima said, that this is really, we have already reached a tipping point. And definitely, we are looking at, a decade of urgent action towards a low carbon future. And in January this year, World Economic Forum Global Risk Report reinforced that climate risks are actually business and investment risks. Look at this chart here. The top ESG risk obviously is infectious disease. I mean, to no surprise due to COVID's impact. And 5 out of the top risks are actually all climate related, whether it is extreme weather, biodiversity loss, or natural resource crisis, and all. And we are already seeing a lot of, extreme weather everywhere. Even in Canada, there is a heat wave. And so I think definitely the world wake up to the fact that climate emergency is real. And this is actually a chart to really wake us up that now we are already 1.2 degrees warmer than the pre-industrial average. And that is also why, the whole global race to net zero is so important. If we base on the current policies and practices, the blue bar there, you can see that we are really heading to, the world is heading to a 3 degree warmer scenario. That means it will come, with the fast warming of the earth and also extreme weather, rising sea level, and there will be a lot more flood, drought, and even forest fire that killing, people's livelihood and animals. So now the question is why? It's not about why we need to take urgent action, it's how we can take urgent action. So the 1.5 degree business, ambition and also net zero are the solutions. And in order to achieve it, everyone, whether it is on the international or national level or public or private sector, we need to aim to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions significantly by about half by 2030 and reach net zero by 2050. And we need to move forward the net negative emission in the second half of the century. And kudos to CDP, actually is starting, very early in 2002 to look at businesses, especially listed companies, carbon footprint. And it has actually grown and expanded over the years. And today, many investors, over a few hundred leading investors, managing 106 trillion, asset US dollars, are actually subscribing to their data. And we are very, privileged to have started reporting to carbon disclosure since 2008. And we are very honored to be on the A list now for both climate strategy as well as water security. And we are also seeing that more and more companies identify climate risks that can have a substantial impact on their business. 2020, which I actually called it the Sustainability Awakening Year. And we actually have seen a convergence of greater will and commitment on the international level and on the national, the NDC level, as well as leading economic bloc. What we actually agree is the health of our planet is interconnected and interdependent with the health of our people, business, and the economy. So you can see that there are many, alliances, targets, frameworks, whether it is the Race to Zero, which I will elaborate a little bit more, and European Green Deal, US is back in the game of Paris Agreement, and of course, UK is driving very hard towards the COP26, and G7, is also, backing the TCFD, the Task Force for climate-related financial disclosure. And of course, investors' voices have never been as strong as, now that, they are supporting Race to Zero. And in Singapore here, we are also looking at the Singapore Green Plan. We have launched it in the beginning of the year. Almost every day we see news about our green plan, and whether it is about green building or green mobility and living, or especially energy reset. These are all the targets to help Singapore to become a city in nature. So Race to Zero is definitely certainly the largest ever alliance representing 50% of the world's GDP and 25% of greenhouse gas emissions. And it is still counting. Over a year, they have already garnered the support of 120 countries, 730 over cities, thousands of businesses and investors, and even education institutions are supporting it. And we are very, very, honored to have joined the 1.5 degree business ambitions in 2019, and joining part of the pioneering 87 company who have pledged the support in the UN headquarters in 2019. And our CEO, our leadership commitment is very strong, and he actually takes the lead to front the commitment. So investors are the one who are going to be a key driver, because as business, we need financial support, we need investor support, we also need financial support from bankers and all. So PRI has grown tremendously from 63 members, signatory in 2006, and now they are actually representing almost 4,000 signatory, mostly are investors, and representing 103 trillion US dollar. And if you are a listed company, you want to have a share of these investors, you have to show that you have a strong ESG strategy, climate strategy in place. And just over 1 year, in 2020, ESG, the exchange trading funds assets nearly tripled, 3 times that of the previous year. And sustainability bond, just now some, a fellow panelist mentioned about bond, it has grown tremendously. Over 1 year, it has doubled the volume than that of 2019. And there are some milestone cases that took place in Europe, and Shell was ordered by the court, in the Dutch court, to cut its carbon emissions. And investor activism has never been as strong now. And ExxonMobil actually lost 2 directors' seats to a very active hedge fund group this is a really landmark case to show how strong investors' voices are. So for CDL, we are actually a private company listed in Singapore and a few other major cities. We were established in 1963 with only 8 employees, and today we are operating in 29 countries and regions. We are one of the leading developers and landlords in Singapore, and we have the global footprint of 150 over hotels, and also have a fund management division as well. So for us, we are not just celebrating the business growth or geographical growth, but we celebrate that we started our sustainability journey very early. And since 1995, we have already established our ethos as conserving as we construct, and also conserving as we manage our business and also our stakeholders. And over the years, we have been most committed to green building. And now we are also talking about super low energy building, and looking at how to decarbonize our operations as well. And we are not looking only the past, but we have to look to the future. So our sustainability report was used to issue our Future Value 2030 Sustainability Blueprint in 2017. What we did is we set goals and targets that align with global goals such as Paris Agreement and the SDGs. And we have to date aligned with 14 out of 17 SDGs that we can make a difference, and vice versa. And how we articulate our ESG performance, we adopted the integrated approach, looking and articulating ESG performance. And ESG is environment, social and governance performance, linkage to the financial and also, organizational capitals as well. So we are not looking inwardly just our own business, but we look at the whole ecosystem, that is our regulator, public sector, private sector, our stakeholders and value chain suppliers as well. And how we disclose is based on the, a harmonized standards that comprising GRI, Global Reporting Initiative, since 2008, and CDP since 2008 as well. And we also look at, TCFD, SDG, and also incorporated SBTI, which I will elaborate a little bit more. And last year, we have also embraced SASB and a Climate Disclosure Standard Board this year. So this is actually the top priority now that the community are all talking about how to harmonize reporting of ESG performance. and that investors will find it consistent, comparable, and useful and meaningful. So for us, we have 4 pillars that underpin our ESG strategy, and we call it the 4I. We look at integration. ESG will not be effective if it is not integrated into the whole company, from the board to the management to the operations to even down to the offsite workers. And innovation is very important, because in order to mitigate risk, just mitigation is not enough. You need to take one step further to adapt to new technology solutions. And investment, you need to put money where your mouth is. You need to invest in innovation technologies and green buildings and all that to achieve, low carbon future. And the 4th I is impact. We need to look at, review and track our impact, whether positive or negative impact. So what we deliver are 3D. Decarbonization is top, because our building and construction sector account for 40% of greenhouse gas emissions. So we have actually stepped up our strategy for more than about 10 years already, which I will show you the journey. And digitalization innovation is key. Without technology, we can't move the needle. And without disclosure and communication, our investors, our stakeholder will not know what a company is committed to. And I'm not going to go into all the details, but for almost 2 decades now, we are committed to building green and managing our buildings in a resource efficient, energy efficient, and water efficient manner. And we need to look at technology. We need to engage our tenants, and we need to engage our stakeholder, whether they are our regulators, our designer, architect, engineer, even the main contractors and workers, to work towards low carbon buildings. And we have actually, under our supervision, 2 buildings, which is net zero. The one is actually a green gallery at the Botanic Gardens, and then the other one is Sustainability Academy. So both are single story, only powered by solar energy. Then we have actually taken the bold step. In February this year, we signed the World Green Building Council Net Zero Carbon Building Commitment, pledging net zero operational carbon for buildings that are under our direct control and management by 2030. This is a very, very ambitious move, which is not easy. And it took us almost 20 years of green journeys to arrive at that, and also stepping up to our strategy policy since 2015. And we have actually, in 2018, we adopted the SBTI approach, look at how we can set targets and goals that it is ambitious and also validated by SBTI, based on science, not just based on the number that we imagine. And at that time, it was still based on the 2-degree warmer scenario. And we have been working very hard. By later part of this year, in a few months' time, we have to submit another set of targets that is based on 1.5-degree warmer scenario. It will be very ambitious and very, challenging for us as well. So we also joined the, race to net zero, and this is actually posted online on the World Green Building Council Advancing Net Zero website. Apart from committing it, we need to disclose data. We also show strategy, what is the action plan, and we need to validate as well. We can't just, present the data without external validation. And apart from doing it, we also have to be a thought leader and advocate it, embrace the net zero together with our stakeholders, together with our ecosystem, whether they are our tenants, our, home buyers, our designer, architect, and suppliers. And this is the SBTI validated, greenhouse gas reduction targets journey that we have been, committed to. And just to explain why we did that, is actually, it really complements CDL's overall ESG strategy and our climate change policy. We are not doing it just because it will make you look good. You have to really embrace it into your strategy. and also, embrace it in everyday operations as well, and engage our supply chain, especially the scope 3, the embodied carbon. We can't do it alone. We have to look at our sustainable building materials. How do we raise the embodied carbon as well? And this set of data was approved in 2018. And thanks to the, all the scientists behind this, CDP, World Resource Institute, WWF, this is one of the most challenging but very, very powerful, driver for us to scout for technology solutions to achieve, to work towards the target. And this is actually the next challenge we are posing on ourselves in order to achieve 1.5 degree ambition, business ambitions. In order to join the race to zero, we need to look at numbers. And this is actually still work in progress, but it will be very, very challenging. And under the 2 degree scenario, our reduction target was set at 59%. If we need to align with the 1.5 degree scenario, we have to look at almost 70%. And this is still work in progress. But like all the other panelists say, we need to step up, we need to be ambitious, and we need to be, really take action to drive change. And in fact, as a business, I can actually assure you that the business case has never been stronger as now. And because we really, achieve a very strong branding amongst the global investors. This is actually, we call it a report card, and assessed by the independent global sustainability ratings and rankings. And you can see the CDP, we have the A-list, and all of the investors take it very seriously and respect all these, sustainability rankings and ratings. For such as like Morgan Stanley, the MSCI ESG rating, we have achieved AAA for more than 10 years now. So this actually helps us to tap into the fast-growing ESG funds and also sustainable finance. And this is one of the examples. We actually issued the first green bond by a Singapore company in 2017. And we continue to tap into the sustainability-linked loan, green loans, and even SDG innovation loans that we developed with DBS in Singapore. And the latest one in April, we actually secure a 1.2 billion green loan for our joint venture. All these funds are very powerful, very important for us to accelerate green building action and for us to bring, decarbonization into fruition. We need funding, we need resources. And apart from the business case, for whether it is political leader or business leader, we don't just look at profit. We look at this is actually the triple bottom line. We look at the planet, people, and profit, which is actually profitability for, not just the business, but also the ecosystem. If a company cannot survive, you cannot create value for your stakeholder investors, and your own employees will lose their jobs as well. So what we believe in is we take care of the planet and also take care. Without a healthy planet, there's no people. Without people, nobody can thrive. No businesses can thrive. As actually advised by the largest asset manager, BlackRock just issued this in June, just a few weeks ago. And what they say is, we believe companies that understand their overall impact on the environment and society and align their business and operation with UN SDG will have the potential to become market leaders. And those that fail to adapt will likely face more pressure from regulators, reputational repercussions of inaction. And BlackRock also highlighted the fact that they only invest in companies with a strong climate commitment and with net zero strategy in place. And of course, we have to disclose it based on the global standards and framework as what I listed here. And together we can advance resilience, climate and business resilience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Esther. Thank you so much. I can see that you're so passionate. And I love that last line, no planet, no life. And look at that behind me, wonderful palm trees, blue skies. That's what we really want to preserve here. I'm going to move into the Q&A because Esther has to move on to another meeting. So I want to invite questions meant for Esther as well as our first two panelists. And I already see a question here. So I will move to that question by Mr. Ryan Wong. He asks, how do we know if forecasting, taxonomies and disclosure requirements actually change investor behaviors? perhaps Esther, you can take that question because you are in close contact with your own investors and you've been hearing feedback from them.
Yes, apart from really very clearly, published in their website, in their strategy, there are plenty of, documents that they already urge investee companies, to step up on their climate action. And I've been on this journey since 1995, 26 years now. And to tell you the truth, when I published our first sustainability report in 2008, for almost, 6 to almost 10 years, nobody won my report. And but after the Paris Agreement, everybody stepped up a little bit, slow but steady, surely. But in 2020, everybody is chasing after data, ESG data, very important. I have never attended so many investors meetings as compared to last year. And pardon me that I have to leave because, at 3:30, and the next meeting is actually an investors meeting. So, these are really solid evidence and proof that investors are really serious about, companies adopting ESG strategy and, decarbonizing their operations. And companies have to prepare, not just a strategy, but also evidence with data. You are tracking it. Setting goals is important, but if you don't track it and you don't know where are the gaps and you don't, show that you are actually knows where you are and knows that where are the gaps and you can actually, you are putting aside, budget and also resources and strategy to close the gap and achieve net zero. Yeah.
I'm aware that some of the audience members may be from the private sector themselves and may actually be SMEs considering taking the same journey that CDL has. And from the acronyms that have been just rolling off your tongue, Esther, I know that your 20 years has not gone to waste. It's actually very fruitful. Is there any advice you would give, in terms of the very many reporting systems out there, GRI, you mentioned SBTI, CDP's disclosure, and even aligning ourselves to the TCFD's recommendations? What kind of advice would you give to an SME that's thinking of taking the same journey that you have? How would that make it easier for them?
Yes, in fact, it is, we really have the privilege and are very fortunate that we start early. I started early, that I was not under pressure when we produced the first report. But now we are in a very different scenario now, very different situation. I also, empathize that, companies that have to really step up. And I think the easy way is take progressive steps. Don't slow down, just do it, okay? Look at what are the most material issues that matters to your own company, okay? And what matters to your investors. Since 2014, we actually conduct an annual materiality study. It's very useful. You don't need to pay big, consultants to do it. You can actually conduct the survey with your own internal stakeholders and your, supply chain, okay? And identify, maybe like top 10 issues. That's what we started, and then of course we engage, a consultant to do a much bigger one, engage, external stakeholder from policymaker, regulators, to even media and investors. But if you are starting, progressively, do it in a smaller scale. Understand your own, direct stakeholders, concern first, whether it is environment or social or governance or gender equality or human rights and all these. So there are many, issues, but stay focused on the top 10 first. Then you can show improvement or you can identify gaps. Reporting is not a PR report. Investor want it to be truthful, to be transparent, to be factual. So you can, be honest to talk about area that you want to improve. And you can also talk about accomplishment. So give a balanced and transparent, approach in your reporting. And that would be my suggestion. Start, but don't procrastinate anymore. We have no time to wait. Let's wait for 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years. And in fact, we have the GRI ASEAN Hub. It's set up in Singapore, but it is covering the whole ASEAN region. So do contact the GRI, team. They have actually a guide for SME reporting as well. Yeah, and in fact, do visit our website too. We are actually hosting SME reporting webinar on the 26th of July. So we will be happy to share more, and welcome everyone to join us as well. It's free and it is a virtual webinar.
That's really nice. I like the idea that businesses are helping other businesses, and there's capacity building at a peer-to-peer level. I have a last question for you before you leave us. Actually, it's a question coming from Mas Fitria Kurniawan, but I want to turn it around. Basically, she says that the private sector has already appeared to be doing a lot more than the government. In your experience as a private sector representative, in the very many jurisdictions that you operate across, not just in Singapore, but in the Asia-Pac region, what do you wish that governments can do to help you make your journey easier?
I won't, have the data to prove that whether private sector is doing more than government, because it has manifold of doing more, whether it is, practices, whether it is resources or investment. But I can say that private sector do have a key role to play, because we are not looking at just one company. Let's just use ours as an example that, as a building, in the building sector, we have access to many, many people. You are a homeowner, you are workers, every one of us use real estate, whether you live in one, work in one, study in one, entertain in one, you travel and stay in a hotel. And so definitely everyone has a role to play. So what I feel is, make use of your own business and see what are the impacts that you can create. And we are not doing a competition. We are not looking at what government is doing, what international community is doing. Believe in what you can do better. And you can't, no one entity can save the world alone. But as a mother of two, I would love to, contribute and really feel that I am leaving behind, some legacy that I have actually contributed to helping to, build a sustainable future for my children. And but in Singapore, we are very fortunate. We have a very active public-private sector collaborations. And many of our events, in even the Sustainability Academy just now I talk about, is not just about government, 6 government agencies, and we actually have the support of ADB, Asian Development Bank as well, and also a regional sustainable energy association, which actually have tied up with sustainable energy professional in the region. So we are also part of UN Global Compact, UNDP, UNDP, so we are working all together, whether public, private, NGO, and even education, students, and innovators as well. So everyone can play a part.
Thank you, Esther. And I want to wish you all the best as you raise.
Yes, now I'm fronting the investor now.
Yeah, as you go towards your net zero goal by 2030, I know that CDL will
very
also
challenging.
reach that ambition and set an example for the rest of the companies in Singapore as well as in Asia Pacific. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. We'll keep running. Thank you very much. Pardon me and my sincere apology. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you. Terima kasih. And just turning on to the same question that Mas Fitria asked, which is really about cross-coordination between ministries. This question is addressed to Pak Dewa. Can you explain how the cross-functions between ministries to reach climate mitigation objectives? And she has observed that the budget in the APBN is still low instead of focusing on climate change impacts in Indonesia.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. This is very challenging question that, as I mentioned before, that the government financing capability is still very limited. We only can support only 30% of the total financing needed. But we need other support from for example, from private sector, and also from the communities, and also from the international support. Regarding your question, coordination between line ministry, that's we from Ministry of Finance has strongly encourage line ministry that's closely correlate to climate action. For example, from the forestry ministry and energy ministry, we try to encourage them in limited budget, they must achieve more target in output activities. That's we try to encourage. And other thing is that we support them from innovative financing mechanism. For example, through like SDGs bond and also Green Sukuk. I mentioned already that the Green Sukuk is mostly provide to finance in energy sector, in transportation sector, and also in forestry sector. That's I think support from the Ministry of Finance in cross ministry in terms of financing mechanism. Thank you, Sarah.
So thank you so much. And also there's another question from Angga Putra about the shortfall in 30% financial support for NDC. So you mentioned Green Sukuk or sovereign bonds as one possibility. Are there any other creative mechanisms that governments can use to raise that shortfall?
Okay, that's also a good question. Maybe you may aware that we in the Ministry of Finance try to tackle this shortfall issue from innovative financing mechanism that I mentioned before, and also we propose like other mechanism. For example, probably this year or maybe next year, Indonesia will apply carbon trading mechanism. So the private sector, the subnational governments that has carbon stock can trade their carbon stock in get a return for example, for money or other benefit. That's the one thing. The second thing that you may also read from the news that government of Indonesia, especially Ministry of Finance, already proposed change of our taxation law. In this taxation law, we introduce a new term of taxation. We call it carbon tax. So next in this taxation law, private sector and other institution that pollute more or emission more will get taxed by the government. And in other hand, private sector or any institution that has below their emission, below their pollution, they has like carbon stock and can pay their company tax with their carbon stock. I think that's a huge changes in government perspective regarding tackling this so-called issues here. Thank you.
Thank you. And just a question from me: how much is the carbon tax you're pegging at? Do you have a figure already in terms of?
In terms of the rate and also the mechanism, we still discuss it with the parliament. But good news is that the object of the carbon tax is already introduced in our big umbrella of the taxation law. And maybe you mentioned that how many the rate or so who's going to pay the carbon tax. We will the issues other regulation regarding to that. So we still discuss it with the parliament. How many the rate? How many who's gonna pay the carbon tax? Hopefully, it will come out later this year. Sure.
Thank you, and all the best for that. The next question I want to move to before we move to the next two panelists is actually from Ms. Katie Yutong Lee, and this is directed at Pak Budi Yowono. You mentioned that you've been working with the youth in Siak Regency, so I think this question might be quite interesting for you. And how do you think you as the provincial government can engage with the youth in realizing nationally determined contributions and in its implementation?
Terima kasih ya Miss Sharon ya. Jadi memang dalam melibatkan anak muda ya sebagaimana tadi sudah kami sampaikan ya, salah satu dengan merangkul mereka, melibatkan mereka ke dalam setiap kegiatan kita. Nah, tadi sudah kami sampaikan bersama dengan LTKL, kami ada membentuk laboratorium albumin ikan gabus. Nah, di mana ini yang bekerja di sini semua anak-anak muda Siak. Yang bekerja di semua anak-anak muda Siak. Jadi difasilitasi LTKL bersama dengan PT Argapana ya membentuk namanya PT Alam Siak Lestari. Nah, PT Alam Siak Lestari ini merekrut anak-anak muda yang ada di Siak tadi supaya mereka terlibat di situ ya, terlibat di situ bagaimana memproduksi albumin ikan gabus tadi ini. Nah, albumin ikan gabus kita produksi menjadi serbuk, tentu kita membutuhkan bahannya ikan gabus. Ya, ikan gabus. Nah, jadi ikan gabus ini kita selama ini kita dapat dari alam, dari Sungai Rawa Gambut. Ini kita dorong anak-anak muda untuk mencari ikan gabus ini tadi. Nah, kalau seandainya Miss Sharon pernah lihat semalam kami baru launching ya anak muda Siak yang berkolaborasi untuk mencari ikan gabus. Sudah ada di YouTube itu ya. Nah, sudah ada di YouTube. Nah, jadi anak muda ini dia mencari ikan gabus. Di samping ikan gabus, dia juga mempromosikan wisata kami yang ada di Siak, terutama yang berkaitan dengan kelestarian lingkungan. Nah, di samping situ juga anak-anak muda kami rekrut juga untuk mereka membuat pusat riset ya, pusat riset ini bagi berbagai macam riset yang mereka lakukan ya, memang juga memanfaatkan laboratorium ini tadi ya. Jadi laboratorium ikan gabus ini memang sekarang yang diproduksi adalah albumin, tetapi sebetulnya dia juga bisa mengolah serat nenas. Nah, di Kabupaten Siak juga banyak terdapat nenas, kebun-kebun nenas yang seratnya juga kita bisa produksi, bisa menjadi kain ya, bisa menjadi selai dan berbagai macam produksi turunan. Nah, ini juga kami juga difasilitasi dengan LTKL melibatkan anak-anak muda yang ada di Siak juga. Gitu. Jadi kita merangkul mereka, melibatkan mereka ke dalam setiap kegiatan-kegiatan yang ramah lingkungan ya, yang juga ramah sosial. Nah, jadi kita libatkan semuanya masyarakat anak-anak muda Siak tadi untuk mereka berkreativitas. Nah, selain daripada yang difasilitasi dengan LTKL tadi, kita juga ada membentuk dari pemerintah Kabupaten Siak itu namanya Kito Siak. Ya, Kito Siak ini komunitas anak muda kreatif Siak. Ya, yang mereka kita kumpulkan, kita fasilitasi, kita berikan mereka satu tempat. Nah, disitulah mereka berkumpul. Mereka berkumpul untuk berkolaborasi, menciptakan inovasi-inovasi baru, sehingga bagaimana mereka bisa memanfaatkan produksi-produksi di Kabupaten Siak yang ramah lingkungan. Nah, demikian Mr. Sharon.
Terima kasih Pak Budi. And please, to our audience, don't leave us yet. We have two more presenters coming on board. May I please invite Dr. Henry to make his presentation.
Thank you for the time. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and best help for all participants. Today, I would like to present my scenario for West Papua contribution for the NDC from forestry sector. Before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Henry and working at the University of Papua together with my colleagues, Bu Saraswati Prabhawardhani and Bu Kati Samsudin. This research is also collaborate with the University of Indonesia with Pak Mahawan Karuniasa, and also Environmental Institute Indonesia with Ms. Wetnas Pradafitri. Contents for my talk consists of introduction. We talk about the mega biodiversity versus the deforestation and economic growth with the low carbon development planning. Methodology, we talk about the dynamic system modeling with the concept, stock flow diagram, and validation. Results, we talk about the business as usual. Countermeasures 1 with a 29% reduction by own effort, and countermeasure 2 with a 41% reduction with by the foreign assistance up to 2030, and NDC forestry sector in West Papua. And the last part, conclusion, we talk the balancing between the mitigation and economic using the green development. Introduction. In the background, we use the SWOT analysis to introduce the general framework and try to find what the purpose and the problem for our research. The strengths for our study is coming from the mega biodiversity and the 3 ecological regions in the South. This is the coastal area, mainland area, and highland area, which are home to the third largest tropical rainforest in the world. Therefore, the forest is still maintaining the endemic flora and fauna and several unknown species. On the other hand, West Papua, as you know, is the youngest province in Indonesia that is still facing for the poverty, especially for the indigenous people in the rural area. Based on the Central Statistic Agency 2020, the poverty rate of the West Papua is categorized as the second national ranking, or about 21.51%. Therefore, the economic mission and strategy are need to develop to anticipate the condition. Our government is already on the track which does still maintain the economic growth with the gross regional domestic product, GRDP, and in Bahasa we call it PDRB, up to the 4.87% per year. So well done and good effort for our government. For the external factor, the threats is sourced from deforestation and degradation, while the degradation rate is up to the 1.05% and the deforestation rate 2.41% per year. Deforestation and degradation is mostly come from the oil plantation. It's gained up to the 1.1 million hectare. And the other is come from forest fire due to the El Nino phenomena in the 2015, and consensus of several companies engaged in forestry and mining sector. Besides that, West Papua still have the opportunity to preserve this paradise with the policy strategy with the release of the Manokwari Declaration during the International Conference on Biodiversity by the Research and Development Agency 2018. The important point of the Manokwari Declaration are to conserve 70% of its territory as the conservation area and to improve the welfare of indigenous people. It's known as Sustainable Development Province. In 2020, Bappenas and West Papua Province made a MOU regarding to implement low carbon development program in the West Papua. So based on all the SWOT analysis, the researchers aim to simulate the NDC contribution for a long-term low-carbon sustainable development with considering environmental, social, and economic sector. Methodology. The method is used for this research is a dynamic modeling with a power sim times. Several variables are needed for the simulation. We can see in the table. The variable are total GLDP of forestry sector, deforestation and degradation, emission, and the last forest management data. With the value and parameter unit and estimation method, you can look in this table. The model will be validated using the absolute mean error with differences, actual value, and simulation data. The stock flow diagram in the below shows the economic variable used in this figure is investment, capital, acre from the forestry and non-forestry sector. And after that, we calculate the total GRDP and the GRDP from the forestry sector. Henceforth, the forestry sector GRDP will be used to see the correlation with the rate of deforestation and degradation. After that, the forestation and degradation data will become the emission data, and with the emission factor of forestry, we calculate the emission factor. For the stock flow diagram NDC to 2030, we add several variables that you can look in the red color line. So we add the variable of forestry emission 2030, business as usual, emission reduction, countermeasures 1 with the 69.6% reduction, and countermeasure 2, 91.0%, which are used to calculate the emission target. After that, the emission target together with the emission fraction will calculate the forest use management. For the simulation analysis, forestry GRDP figure shows the countermeasure 1 and countermeasure 2 decreased by 71.6% and 90.9% from the BEU scenario. Meanwhile, the total GRDP is also decreased by 5.9% for the countermeasure 1 and 6.6% from countermeasure 2. As the graph emission for the forestry sector, it can be seen that where emission reduction is 0.28 time, or reducing 71.6% for the countermeasure 1, and 0.02 or 90.9% reduction for the countermeasures 2, with the emission target accounted 25.3 million ton CO2 equivalent for countermeasure 1 and 7.5 million ton CO2 equivalent for the countermeasure 2. So to make a balancing mitigation and economic, we apply the green development with the first policy to identify of company permits located in the forest area, and the second policy to collaborate with Bappenas in implementing the low carbon development program at the provincial level. And the third, for the economic sector, promoting downstream industry for the non-timber forest product such as nutmeg oil, masohi oil, eucalyptus oil, cacao, coffee, and the others. And the last, economic. And then for the conclusion, based on the business as usual, the forest management model can be used to predict deforestation and degradation quite well, and can predict 70% forest cover until 2030. Using the forest simulation model, we still keep maintain 85 until 87% forest cover in West Papua from the business as usual scenario. And the last conclusion, we need to develop low carbon development from forestry sector by considering the green economic for forest sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Henry. And now may I invite the co-founder and Chief Sustainability Officer of Mycotech Lab, Kak Arekha Bentangan.
Thank you very much. I think you can hear me, right?
You're a little bit spotty. Maybe you should speak nearer to the microphone. Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Can you hear me?
Now? Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much for the introductions, Mbak Sharon. Thanks for having me, and good afternoon for everyone. I think I'm the last one, isn't it? So, so hopefully everyone's.
Yes, you're the last one, and I will still be keeping time on you.
Okay. Hopefully everyone's still excited to listen to my story. Thank you very much. Okay, you can play the slide. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yes, my name is Arekha, and I'm co-founder of MYCL, which is a startup from Bandung that's focused on developing advanced sustainable materials through biotechnology approachment. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah. Okay. As you know, leather leather is one of the most traded products in the world, right? So according to the report in 2010 from the United Nations, I think, Industrial Development Organization, leather goods and trade products have any estimated global trade value over $100 billion US dollars annually. That's quite significant marketplace, isn't it? But I think that's where the end of the good news. Leather production has such a significant impact on the environment because it hits it from so many angles. Firstly, there's the use of precisely limited resources, such as like land, water, and energy that's required to farm the animal in the first place, and also the food that animal needs for food. Yeah, and the resulting of the deforestation and of course the loss of natural habitats. Not to mention, it also produces significant amount of greenhouse gas emission. As you can see, it's like 18% from all of the industry. So it's quite significant. And next slide, please. So we, as a team, we try to find the solution for this problem, right? So our team consists of various background, biotechnology, engineers, designers, businessmen. So we introduced MyLea. So MyLea is an abbreviation for mycelium leather. It's a leather that likes, leather-like materials that we produce with the inspiration from fungi. Yes, fungi, the mushrooms. But unlike the conventional synthetic leather, as you know, that comes from, hydrocarbon-based materials, is by the way, it's a fancy name for plastic. It solves one problem, yes, but creates more problem in the end. Because in the product's end of the lifetime, the synthetic leather, for example, you throw it away, and of course the synthetic leather will stay for a long time because it's plastic. Yes, and we want to produce like leather-like materials that fully organic, but not comes from animal. But we hope it has similar feeling like animal leathers. So maybe some of you might ask why you use mushrooms. That's because mushrooms that we know, mushroom itself is just one phase of its life cycle. So it also has another life cycle. It's called a vegetative phase, vegetative part. We call it mycelium. It's like root structure matrix, that has certain properties that we can use for our purpose. So, of course, the most important things is we can utilize agro-industrial waste that very abundant in Southeast Asia as a raw material, and we can convert it into leather, and later we can use it for various products, for example. So we hope we can solve multiple problems at once. This is, for example, like you can see bio-waste that people produce, we can convert it into leather, and we can use it for example, like footwear, shoes, or sandal, for example. Next slide, please. And we can also compare the animal leather, conventional animal leather, with MyLea. As you can see, we produce MyLea with, of course, shorter amount of time because we don't have to grow animals, isn't it? So like cows, you have to grow it at least 2 years to ready to harvest. We just needs like less than 2 months of time because we just grow the mycelium. And I'm glad to say that we can save like 99.9% of water and land usage for producing MyLea. Of course, we can avoid the use of heavy metals and harmful chemicals in the process of productions. Yes, of course, at the moment, it's safe to say that we not yet at the same level of the animal leathers, but we're getting closer to mimic the physical properties of animal leathers, and we plan to even surpass the animal leathers in the near future. Yes, and next slide, please. We collaborate together with a lot of brand, 46 global major brand, international major brand, and also local brands to explore the possibility of our products. They explore the application of our materials. And because our material is not perfect yet, we want to find the limit of our material, and we hope we can improve it further. Okay, next slide, please. So you can see that there is shoes, sandals, and even watch strap. This is the latest. Our collaboration with Doblet Japan is a leading fashion brand in Japan, and together we make collections in spring summer 2021. That's actually last week in Paris Fashion Show. So maybe some people don't realize that this leather jacket is come from mycelium leather. So it's not really a real animal leather, but it's quite interesting design, isn't it? So next slide, please. And the idea actually, MYCL or Mycotech Lab laboratory want to produce a product with, highest efficiency as we can. We utilize agro-industrial waste as our raw materials, and we convert the waste into leather and into leather goods. But we also produce like byproducts, we can say that, solid waste, and we utilize the solid waste into eco-friendly board that we can use it for furniture, and it also already has a market for it. And meanwhile, the liquid waste that we produce, we try to use it as raw material for bioplastic productions. Okay, next, please. So not only for ourselves, we want to give benefit for people around us. We want to try to empowering local community as well, and giving back to them. And yeah, we train them, and we help. They help us to into the production process. Okay, and next one, please. So one of the most important thing, I think, is sustainability. That's the core value and the reason why we're doing this at the first place. Even though it's still small scale, we try our best to measure all of the environmental impact. So with the help of third party like B Corp, Decorum, and maybe soon WRI help us to validate our data. We released the environmental report since 2019. So feel free to check it out in our website. And next one. So this is the example of our report in our website. Okay, next one. So this is the example. Another thing that we also release is also impact calculator for our customer. So every time they purchase something from our website, we give more information about how they can give impact even this smaller scale, even for the small product like this is a leather wallet. We can save huge amount of water compared with the animal leather. So we give detailed information for every single item that we have in our website. So it's crazy to think about it. And next, for another example of the product. So this is, for example, shoes. Even we can save more land mass, more water compared with the smaller products. And next one. Yeah, this is another types of shoes that we produce. So that's basically the introduction of our what we're doing in the last several years. So next one. Yeah. So hopefully we can give an impact in our way to the environment, to the world, and yeah. Thanks for your attentions. Back to host, Sharon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think that's very, really quite interesting, and some synergy too with what Dr. Henry was saying about moving the communities to certain downstream industries, and what you're talking about is using agri-waste to create a form of a circular economy. I think that could possibly be an idea that perhaps the two of you could work together. I'm afraid that we're really running out of time, so I only just have one question. 1 square meter of mylia compared to 1 square meter of leather, what is the price differential?
Price differential. Okay. At the same size, yeah. At the same size, we managed to produce one square meter of melia. It's about same price with the conventional animal leather, but we produce it in very small scale at this moment. So in the future, when we produce, we plan to upscale our productions, even like 250 times bigger than our capacity right now. We plan to reduce our costs like half less than our current cost. So it's like half of the cost of conventional animal leather that in the market right now. So we can reduce that. So yeah.
Thank you. And now I'll just hand the time over to Oki for the next segment of the program.
Sure, thank you, Sharon, for to lead the event. I think as we are running out of time, I think we now need to invite our closing remarks from Pak Tony and how we can move forward after this to prepare COP26. Pak Tony, over to you.
Thank you, and good afternoon to everyone. That was, I thought, really fascinating listening to the discussion and to the presentations. We saw a whole variety of responses of activities on the ground in Indonesia as well as in Singapore. And Nestor's presentation was more also global. And we see exciting things that are happening on the ground, from green bonds to businesses helping other businesses in forestry, in leather, as the last presentation that we have. So I'm excited about all of those things that are happening. But as always in climate, it's very important to remember that we are dealing with a global problem, a global challenge, and we need to always take stock and add up all the things that we are doing on the ground. And in this case, we're looking at non-state actors, businesses, communities, private sector, local governments, and doing quite a lot of things. I mean, and so it's important to actually add up all of these things and see how it contributes to the goals of the Paris Agreement. One thing about the Paris Agreement, and I actually helped negotiate that for the Philippines in 2015, is that we made sure that the role of non-state actors will be institutionalized, not just acknowledged and recognized, but actually mainstream in the way countries will implement their nationally determined contribution. Because if our goal is going to be 1.5 degrees, a cap of 1.5 degrees Celsius in terms of the warming in relation to pre-industrial levels, then we need all the actions that we can have. And the presentations today show us not only that these actions are happening, but these actions are happening also are being done by non-state actors, and that this because of the scale that it is happening, I was really amazed at Esther's presentation in terms just of linking all the different actions on the ground with what's happening at the global level. Because then what happens with the private sector, what happens with the activities on the ground also influence public sector ambition and contribute to the updating of NDCs as we move forward, because that's what we should be looking after. And I mean, all the analysis that we have found that have been done so far will tell us that all the goals, including even the net neutrality goals that was talked about earlier, that countries have started to adopt, they're not gonna get us even to 2 degrees, which is the, I call it the maximum in the Paris Agreement, while we want 1.5. Now, it's actually interesting to me that when we were in Paris, we found it very difficult to push 1.5, but now that's generally accepted as the right goal. And the only question is, can we actually achieve it? Because the window to achieve that is very challenging. We've always known that anyway. And that's why it's important to add up all the different things that you are doing here today in this that were shared today in this event convened by CDP and WRI and other partners. I mean, the truth is that the international community is at a critical juncture in its efforts to address the climate crisis. No, this is the time when we should be coming together to close the 1.5 gap. Yet, because of many reasons, the old reasons for distrust between North and South, developed and developing countries, as well as new reasons, especially the experience of the pandemic and the experience of vaccine injustice. I mean, that there is in fact some apprehension about what we can achieve going into the climate negotiations in COP26 at Glasgow in November this year. Several of us, including in my team in the Manila Observatory, which is a scientific research and policy institution based in the Philippines, we followed the virtual negotiations, historic because first time that the Climate Change Convention did a purely virtual negotiations. The purpose was to advance key issues such as architectural elements of the Paris Agreement, how to be able to move that forward. So that's essential. But the sessions, while I would say yes, we had no choice. It had to be virtual. It would have been foolish to meet face to face at this time. These sessions only provided limited progress. I mean, and what we're hoping is that Glasgow would be different. Among others, also that participation would be more universal in Glasgow if face-to-face participation happens and is paid attention to all the safety needs related to this. Issues that developing countries considered to be priorities were not on the agenda in the virtual negotiations. For us, for example, the delivery of the 100 billion climate finance goal is critical, a global goal on adaptation, and of course, progress in loss and damage. It's even ironic that sessions on transparency were close to observers. I mean, as requested by China. On the other hand, just to update you, the discussions on the global stocktake were constructive. The global stocktake is really important because, as I said, the current commitments do not add up to even 2 degrees cap to the 2-degree goal. How much more 1.5? But because we're having discussions on the global stocktake, the mechanism under the Paris Agreement that is meant to ratchet up ambition and spur more climate action, then that was a constructive thing that happened in the virtual negotiations. Building trust and solidarity is going to be extremely critical as we move forward toward Glasgow. And the things that you are doing here, you were sharing, the things that are happening on the ground, do build that trust and solidarity. Because I also from from what I was hearing, a lot of the things they're doing do have support of international partners, and that is key. Now, of course, the elephant in the room going to Glasgow is going to be the pandemic still, and vaccine inequalities, and those type of things, not in a sense directly related to climate, but really, if you've done climate justice work for many years, vaccine injustice is just another expression of that kind of injustice that we've experienced, for those of us who have approached the climate negotiations from a climate a justice point of view. We do need to build the discussions in the virtual session so that we have a better result in Glasgow. You know, things are hoping for, particularly major economies. The G7 was also mixed. I mean, I think in the end, many of us were disappointed also, while recognizing that, of course, G7 now is better than G7 when the US had Donald Trump as its president. But we hope that major economies would submit updated NDCs that will show efforts to close the ambition gap. I mean, we hope that they can be able to meet the 100 billion goal with better commitments. You know, what we're having right now is really a zero-sum narrative, which still sacrifices the environment and climate for global prosperity. And what we want to do is to be able to do that. And that's why we're actually I was invited here, also because the Manila Observatory, which I currently head, is part of a consortium that does that work to try to get us to a more just, a more effective global response. I mean, we're part with WRI and other groups with the Allied for Climate Transformation by 2025, or ACT 2025, which is a collaborative group of think tanks and experts working together to build solidarity and trust. I mean, especially to lobby or to work in COP26 to achieve just outcomes, which is ambitious, but also enables climate resilient prosperity for all, and especially for the most marginalized and the poorest countries. So the things that we're paying attention to, and I'm really glad I attended this, because this side event really gave me hope, is increased ambition to close the gap. Of course, finalization of rules and architecture, scaled up climate finance, the 100 billion I've been talking about, and then resilience, strengthened resilience through effective process and negotiation for adaptation and also for loss and damage. And I think the things that are happening on the ground here, as we have heard from all our colleagues, has been really quite inspiring, and gives me hope in the difficult task ahead, moving towards Glasgow in November. So thank you and congratulations to everyone, and let's continue to work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tony, for the closing remarks. I think the key is justice and solidarity are the key on how we can move forward after this and to prepare for the Glasgow. Again, I would like to extend a heartfelt thank you to all speakers and participants who actively contributed to this virtual event. The team will make available all the presentations and report through the email. Participants, if you have questions, please do not hesitate to contact us. The more steps we take together and the higher ambitions we take those steps with, the quicker we will allow the global transition towards a low carbon and resilient economy. Thank you all. Stay engaged, stay safe, and have a good rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.